Thank you for joining us. The purpose of this instructional video is to provide moderators in the City of Norwalk with an overview of the new Moderators Return. Changes to the return have been made due to the introduction of new tabulators into the voting environment and the addition of a new election results reporting system. For example, the procedures used to break and apply tamper evidence seals have changed. The policy of if and when to remove ballots from the ballot box has changed. The process for awarding write-in votes has changed. And the process for documenting hand count ballots has changed. Additionally, some changes have been made to the signatory process throughout the document. This video will walk you through each section of the return and provide examples of how to complete each section as required before the polls open and after the polls have closed. For information on how to open and close the tabulator, see the accompanying video on this topic. The Moderators Return provides moderators a standard reporting mechanism to document some of their activities throughout the day and to report election activity results. It is a state-required document which facilitates communication and reporting to the head moderators, the registrars, and in some cases the state audit and recount groups. The return documents which technical systems were utilized during the election, such as tabulators, ballot boxes, memory sticks, and IVS systems. The return documents which poll workers participated in the election, their role in the election, and confirms that they were issued the oath. Finally, the moderator's return is used as a starting reference point in the event of a recount or state audit. If errors were to be identified in the return, Norwalk would be at risk of further audits and penalties, so it's important that the return be completed accurately. The document is roughly laid out so that earlier pages will be filled out during the opening of the polls, while the later pages will be completed at the closing of the polls. This video describes how to use the moderator's return. It does not describe how to open and close an election tabulator, nor how to pack up the equipment used in an election. Detailed training on the opening and closing procedures are available on the registrar's YouTube channel. Likewise, a procedures document is available to moderators in their moderator's binder that describes in detail how to open and close an election. The procedures document also describes how to perform uncommon tasks, such as opening the main ballot box compartment. So let's walk through each section of the moderator's return together. Section 2 and 3 are listings of all of the seals that were affixed to the voting equipment at City Hall. In addition, a space is provided for the moderators to document the seal numbers used at the conclusion of the election. There are 6 seal points and 7 lock points used in the main tabulator and ballot box unit. These are documented in Section 2. Additionally, there are 2 seals on the backup tabulator, 1 seal used for the banker's bag, and 1 seal used on the top of the blue cabinet. These seals are documented in Section 3. The opening and closing procedures describe how to check and document tamper evidence seal numbers. One major point of note is that cast ballots will be returned to City Hall in the ballot box. As a result, the main ballot box compartment may not be opened at the polling locations. Exceptions to this rule will be covered during in-person training for moderators. Section 4 is the certificate supplied by the registrar that the tabulators were tested, zeroed out, and sealed. This will be signed by the registrar and does not need to be signed by the assistant registrars or moderators. Section 5 is the certificate of opening the polls. This needs to be signed by the moderators and assistant registrars. It is an attestation that all of the seals were inspected and found to be unbroken and that their numbers were correct. By signing this page, you further certify that a zero tape was printed. The IVS system is required to be available at the opening of the polls. The assistant registrar is responsible for confirming that the IVS system is available by printing an initial startup page. Sign the startup page and place the printed startup page on top of section 6 in the Moderators Return. Every poll worker must be sworn in by taking the oath. This section has the approved oath printed so that moderators can read it to all the poll workers. It also documents each poll worker that has taken the oath. Each poll worker that takes the oath must sign this page. Additionally, the moderator must sign the bottom of the page. One point of note, this page is not used to facilitate payroll. That sheet is in the moderator's binder. The official checker's return documents the sum total of the count of electors that were checked in by all of the checker lines during the election. Each checker line in the election has a column for their specific numbers. At the end of the election, the checker from each line will bring the moderator their worksheet, which is part of the checker's book. The moderator will copy the numbers from each checker's worksheet onto the corresponding column on this page and calculate the total number of electors checked in for the election. Once the totals for the election are calculated, the checker's numbers are ready for the moderator to tally the election reconciliation. The official ballot clerk's return documents the sum total of the count of ballots that were issued during an election. It documents spoiled ballots, abandoned ballots, and how many ballots should have been cast. Additionally, it documents the source of all the ballots. For example, it documents how many pre-printed ballots were issued, how many emergency ballots were issued, and how many ballots were issued from the early voting environment. Each ballot clerk's line in the election has a column for their specific numbers. At the end of the election, the ballot clerk from each line will bring the moderator their worksheet, which is part of the checker's book. The moderator will copy the numbers from each checker's worksheet into the corresponding column on this page and calculate the total number of ballots issued during the election. Once the totals for the election are calculated, the ballot clerk's numbers are ready for the moderator to tally the election reconciliation. At the end of the election, the moderator will feed all ballots from the auxiliary bin through the tabulator. Once the election has been closed, the tabulator will print a closing report. The printed tape will be taped on the last page of this moderator's return. There is no need to copy the results printed on the tape into this polling place tally sheet section. The numbers are already on the printed tape and will be returned to City Hall in a digital format on the memory stick. Additionally, it is not required that the moderator award write-in ballots at this time, as the write-in values are printed on the tape and stored on the memory stick. Write-ins will be officially awarded at City Hall in the presence of the head moderator. However, the moderator can award write-ins if directed by the registrar or if members of the public are requesting it. In the event that some ballots need to be hand counted, the moderator must award all hand count votes and document them in this section. In practice, it is most likely that only the hand count column will be completed in this section, if anything. If the write-in or hand count columns are completed by the moderator while at the polling location, the numbers in these sections need to be communicated to the head moderators at City Hall. The ballot count from the tabulator added to the number of hand count ballots is the total number of ballots cast. The number of ballots cast is ready for the moderator to tally the election reconciliation. The moderator will perform an election reconciliation tally, which is the process of comparing the checker's numbers against the ballot clerk's numbers and the total ballots cast. Additional training will be provided on this three-point check during in-person moderators training. Once the election reconciliation tally has been completed, the moderators must certify how many ballots were cast and where the ballots were secured after the election. In practice, all ballots that pass through the tabulator should remain in the ballot box, while hand-counted ballots should be placed in an envelope labeled Hand Count Ballots. This page must be completed and signed by the moderators. This page certifies that the polls were closed, all ballots are counted, and that all seals have been applied and recorded in this document. Once these items are complete, the moderators should sign this page. When the polls open, the moderator's version of the zero tape should be taped to this page. This page should be completed after the tally sheet and disposition of ballots pages are completed. Once completed, the moderator's version of the results tape should be taped to this page. This version of the tape will also contain the printed write-ins if write-ins are available during the election. Each page of this return needs to be reviewed. The only section that may be left incomplete is the tally sheet in the event the tabulator tape contains all ballot results. All 10 seals listed in sections 2 and 3 of the return need to be affixed and logged, while the additional seals section may be left blank. Some seals may be the same seals that were initially installed by City Hall. Once the return is complete, return to City Hall with this completed document and the memory stick to work with the head moderators. Thank you for being part of the Norwalk Poll Workers team.